Okay, great. Thanks everybody for joining today. We're going to go ahead and get started talking about the FY26 compliance plan and cost analysis. These slides will be available on the MIDC's website after this training today. Today is April 11th, 2025. I'll try to make them available, if not today, by the end of the day, Friday, by early next week. You're welcome to reach out to us anytime if you have any questions, concerns, anything that we can do to help support you as you're submitting your compliance plan and cost analysis. I did notice a couple of new faces today. If you're new to EGrAMS, please make sure that you set up your credentials using a short tutorial that we've created on our website. If you go to michiganidc.gov on our grants page, it'll take you also to our YouTube page where we have just a recording. It just takes a few minutes to set up your credentials. This is an older video, but the same instructions apply today. And we want to make sure that you're associated with the correct funding unit or funding units. Some of you will be entering plans for a couple of different systems. So we can help facilitate getting your credentials in place. Just let us know if you need any assistance. For anyone who is new to our program, or just wonders, why do we even use this? It's like kind of complicated. We've got to train people on how to use it and all of that. We use EGrAMS really to promote transparency and efficiency in the compliance planning and reporting process. We wanted to have a way where at any given time, people can go in and see how their grant is proceeding, whether it's after submission, working their way through the regional managers, through the grants director, through senior staff, and if it needs to get returned, there's an open line of communication. You can see at any given time when reports are due, when payments have been made, things like that. This has been really helpful to us. By way of comparison, when we first started working through this grant program in 2019 and 2020, everything was entirely manual. People would submit their compliance plans either like in Word or PDF with Excel spreadsheets. And really, it was incredibly difficult to compile that information and to generate reports from it, and to be able to, I mean, we actually spent the majority of our time just getting all of that information organized for the commission, rather than, doing the real work of analysis of year-over-year comparisons, which is something that the commission has been interested in learning more about. And we also want to be able to run reports, very precise reports on spending. And in the past, when they were just submitted, whether it was again in PDF or Excel or just any type of format there. Not only was it very difficult to generate reports, it was also difficult to have an open line of communication about where we were in the review process. So EGrAMS really, this is a particular grant management system, the solution that the state uses through a bidding process. This will be bid out again. We're in the process of a rebid right now, but EGrAMS is the solution that we use. It's really a wonderful program. We've been able to have everything that we do run through EGrAMS, including not just the compliance plans and cost analysis, but we can actually map the full life cycle of the approval process according to the MIDC Act and all the iterations, the resubmissions, as well as all of the requirements that are due throughout the year. The quarterly reports, the unexpended balance report, which is a statutory requirement, and like I mentioned, just the report generation for all the compliance program costs and the specific objectives of the standards that are being met. We're able to pull reports from those too. Basically, any information that's populated in EGrAMS, we can run reports on. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about reports. I can show you a couple of those as we go through this today, but really just focusing on the compliance plan and cost analysis. So, really before we get started too, if you're new, like I said, make sure that you have your credentials set up. Deborah's on the call today too. Between me or Deborah, we're happy to help at any time. If you're a judge or a court staff member, we can make sure that you have access to EGrAMS, like for reporting status. Some people in the court system, they enter data about like maybe number of arraignments or assignments or things like that that are made. Um, but judges and court staff members cannot submit compliance plans or any reporting, so we have to give them a special status in our system. Um, One note, I say this every year, is the person who begins the compliance plan is considered the owner or the project director of the plan. And other people can contribute, as necessary. You can assign the project director can assign various components of completing either the plan or the cost analysis to other people. We can also make those role assignments as well if you need any assistance. Um, but, this is something that every year the project director has to go in and affirmatively state that they're authorized to submit the plan. And we really do prefer that the project director helps make the assignments for the other roles of people in the system, or at least shoots us a message that other people are authorized so that we can facilitate, the credential setup. If you are not the project director or the primary point of contact for the funding unit, like for example, if you're a judge or a court clerk, please do not start a compliance plan because then we will have to undo it and reassign it and get it to the right person who's supposed to be doing it. We cannot accept a compliance plan or cost analysis submitted by anyone who is not authorized by the funding unit to make that submission. Um, or again, if you're a court or a judge or a court staff member, because of the MIDC standard requiring independence from the judiciary, we're not able to accept plans from judges or court staff members. So there are a few things that you might want to have on hand. It just depends on your work style. Some people like to work through the Word document just to see all of the questions in front of them, and then they can enter some text. And you can, if you have the Word document, you can copy and paste over into the EGrAMS when you get ready. After all of your content is complete, you can do that and just go copy and paste throughout the entire document. You can also go ahead and look at last year's plan if you want to. There's a way that you can go through, all the way back to 2022. That's when, at fiscal year 2002, that's when we started using EGrAMS. If you want to go back and look at any prior years to see you want to see, who does what role or how things were set up in the past. If you're new to the system, you have access to all of the prior approved plans and cost analysis that are in our system. The way that you would do this, again, this really, I think, is for anybody who has this role. You can go to grant application and print submit application, and then you click on that hyperlink over there. One quick note, when you click on the hyperlink, every now and then somebody will say, nothing happened, nothing came up, or I don't have anything. And usually what that means is that on your browser, you have pop-ups blocked. So you either just have to, unblock it yourself if you have the ability to do that through your IT department, or contact your IT department and have them unblock it for you. We cannot unblock it for you. We cannot work with your IT department to have them unblock it for you. We are going to need you to do that. We can send you a PDF if you want, if you really are just stuck and you can't do it, but you do have the ability to access all of this information on your own from your own desktop. Pop-up blockers might need to be disabled though. Okay, I'm going to go through entering a compliance plan too. Some of this, like I said, is from our, just from like prior years. I used some of the same slides from prior years. I updated a few things for FY26. But importantly, a lot of this is done in our test environment, and a lot of it is just for the purpose of going through this training event. This isn't to say like, oh, if you use this exact text, this is something that is going to be approved by the commission, something like that. I don't want you to look at the substance of a lot of what we're putting in here. It's more just like for form and process. We're just going to walk you through. So please don't say, well, this was on the slide, so I assume it's fine. Because in some instances, it's sort of not fine. It's incomplete information. It was just as we were going through the test environment for purposes of creating this training program. So that's my disclaimer there. We're going to go ahead then and start a compliance plan. So one thing that's really important when you are going to our grant program, which is EGrAMS, you need to make sure that you're on the MIDC's EGrAMS page. I had somebody already today reach out to me, and they were on DHHS's site, the Department of Health and Human Services. If I think sometimes people just Google Michigan and EGrAMS, and for whatever reason, search optimization engines, they always want to pull up DHHS first, probably because they have a ton of grants and they've been around a lot longer than us. But what you want to make sure is that you are, if you're looking in the upper left-hand corner there, that you see Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, not DHHS. That's how you know that you're in the right place. You can also go to our grants page and there are links there. We've also sent out, quite a bit of messaging, which should get you to the right place as well. So once you're on our EGrAMS page, go ahead and hit that login. Um, you will need your username and password. And if you only ever do compliance plans, maybe you haven't been in EGrAMS since last year, maybe you don't remember your password, you can always click that forgot password. You will need to know what your security question is, though, and you will also need to know what your username is. So if you've forgotten either your username or your security question, you can reach out to us and we can help you get that reset. We don't, this is me or Deborah, we're happy to help you with any of that. We don't know your password though. We have no access to that. So please don't ask us for what your password was. We don't know, but we can do a few things to help you at least get reset. We can also make sure that in your profile that the reset button is going to your correct email address. If you've moved or like just locally, for whatever reason your web or your email address has changed, we can make sure that it's getting to the right place too. Um, it's pretty common that people, forgot their passwords. We're happy to help. Once you're logged in here, you're going to be on this, which is your basic welcome screen. And I'm going to, help you get through some of the navigation here through, the course of the next several slides. But basically, I just want to point out here in the top left corner, right below our logo, you can always click home and get back to this home page here. And you can then see like under pending tasks, if you haven't submitted your compliance plan yet, that's where it's going to be. And you can work your way through there. You can always click back and get to this home screen so that you can work through your tasks, whatever is due. You can find if there's any notifications, like if like a reporting got sent back or anything like that, that's available to you as well. So to start an application, if anybody hasn't started yet, and I think I noticed this morning, there are still over 40 systems that haven't even started yet. It's a two-step process to start the application. For a new application, again, the project director, whoever starts it, is going to be the project director. They're going to own this. What you do is you go to that menu there and navigate over to the project director, the drop-down menu, and it will, the first option there is to start a new application. So that's your first step. Project director, start a new application. You're going to make sure that you're in the add mode. So again, under start application, under the navigation ribbon there, be in the add mode. I think it defaults to add. And you're going to use the lookup menu. I'm going to use that term a couple of times. So that's the lookup menu are those three little dots along the grant program line there. You only are going to have one option, which is for FY26 this year. So that's the one that you're going to choose. And then you're going to click OK. And then you're going to get a message that says this application was successfully added. Then you can go in and start to enter the information. So a pretty common thing is people will call and say, I just logged in and I'm looking at my tasks and I don't see anything. I can get to the old stuff, but I can't get to the new. It's because they haven't added yet. So make sure you do that first step, then you can enter the information. This is from the drop-down menu again from grant application, go to enter grant application. We'll enter all the content. We'll go from the standards through the cost analysis. And then when everything is completed, we'll come back to this drop-down menu and go to the print submit option. Okay. So once you click on this, you're able to get through either through the back on the home screen under your pending tasks or grant application, enter application. You're going to click on that hyperlink there that says application entry pending. After you start working on it, it's going to change to application entry work in progress. Anytime you click on that, you're going to get a little warning or a notification here that tells you when the submission deadline is. Please don't miss the submission deadline. It's April 25th at 11:59 p.m. We're very serious about that. That is the statutory deadline. That is 180 days when after a new standard is entered, or it is the timeline set by the commission, but pursuant to the MIDC Act. So this year, they set this earlier this year, April 25th at 11:59 p.m. is when this will close. So, anytime that you work on the application, you're going to get this notice. Just click OK to clear it out, and you'll be able to work through the application itself. Okay, you're going to work all the way through these all the way through these tabs, and it's going to have you populate page by page by page. If you're looking again, sort of in the top third there, you can see all of the tabs that you need to complete. It is my recommendation that you move from left to right, starting at page one of tab one with the applicant information, have that populated, and every time that you enter information, you're going to hit where the red star there is that Save Next button. This is my recommendation for how you should move through the application and cost analysis. Anytime you enter information, save next. The reason that I say this is that way you don't miss anything, right? You're going to see every single page there. You are welcome to move around. I mean, if you open this up and immediately you want to start tackling standard five, you can do that. That's fine. Just make sure that you save your work. But I think it is a lot more efficient in terms of not missing anything to just move from left to right, page by page by page. Save next accomplishes it. If you're not inputting any information, it's going to tell you when you hit save next, nothing changed. That's fine too, because you might either use the copy feature. Some of this stuff is pre-populated also in the applicant information. So over to the far right there, just use the arrow forward button to get you to the next page so that you can enter information. On the second page, the second question asks you right away, how much money are you asking for? And it's pretty rare for people to know exactly how much before they've completed the entire cost analysis. So my recommendation here is save this part for later. You don't have to put anything in here. We'll have instructions for how you get back to populate this information after we complete the cost analysis. You can do it, like I said, you can even just put placeholder numbers if you want to, if that makes you feel better. But my recommendation is save it for later. The local share is pre-populated. This is a 2.7 increase from the original local share that was established in 2019. The local share does not compound year after year. It's always going to go back to that original number that was established. If you have any questions about this or concerns, we did go through and audit several of these to make sure that they populated correctly. I'm not sure that we did all 120. If you have any questions or concerns about it, then just let me know. Um, but otherwise, this should be already pre-populated, and please don't change it. This is attached to a couple of other things, also to the cost analysis. And if this number changes, you won't be able to validate. So don't touch this one. Every year, you need to go in and assign three different roles. So there's going to be the project director. In some instances, the person completing the form isn't the project director. That's fine. You can assign somebody different in here, or you can have more than one. In fact, you can have up to three project directors in each compliance plan. You can have up to two financial points of contact, and you can have at the authorized official, and if anybody else needs to sign the compliance plan, you can assign those roles as well. But you do at least need to have the three basic roles assigned, which is project director, financial, and authorized official. If you don't, know exactly who the person is or they don't have EGrAMS credentials, that's fine too. You do have to fill out the contact type and just put their name and address in there. It can also be a TBD role. We'll need an email address, and I would recommend just putting in your own if you don't know who's going to sign it. But anyway, we can always go back and fill that out as well. They don't have to have an EGrAMS login here, though, is the main thing that I just want to mention. You can also copy over from last year. The copy feature is really helpful, and especially this early on in the application, you might really want to use this because it can basically populate the entire compliance plan for you if you want, and then you can just go through and make your edits. So I have a little red rectangle there around the copy button. It looks like this. If you click on the copy button, what it's going to do is pull up a little dialog box here, and it's going to prompt you, do you want everything or just this particular grant category? And then you can use, again, the lookup button that we talked about before and click OK. And it'll bring up, the prior compliance plans. I don't know why you'd want to copy over from something from it, the 2022. My guess is that most people will want to copy over just from last year, from fiscal year 2025. But whatever you want to do, you have the option of copying over from prior years. Click on those and then hit OK. If you, again, want to do all sections, you can. Otherwise, you can just go category by category too, and that might be, just as easy. You're going to get a notice about it writing over information. That's fine. It won't write over the local share or anything like that. It'll just write over from like where you're at. It might erase a little bit of information or it might just update. But, don't worry about that. I would usually just accept and then move forward. As you're moving through here, the additional information tab, we've finished the applicant tab. As you can see, we're moving on to additional information. You need to certify again, like I said, that you are authorized to submit this compliance plan. Every year, at least 20 people will call me and say that they cannot fill out all of these little gray boxes. And that's because the way that you have to do this is you will click the button and then hit save, and then it will automatically fill that out for you. So what it will look like after you click the button, it'll check and hit save, it'll populate for you, and then it will give you that little, cursive signature there at the end. You cannot type this in. So please don't call me and say you can't type this in. You just click the button, hit save, and it'll do it for you, and then you move forward. Okay. Um, and then just move to the next page with the arrows there. All right. So then the remainder of the additional information tab is going to ask about your system model. If you have a managed assigned, it's pretty common for people to have a managed assigned counsel system, also in conjunction with a public defender office or a regionalized system. You might have more than one. Check all that apply. If you have a managed assigned counsel administrator, it is going to prompt you for the name and P number of that person. Please fill that out if you know that. If you're in between, you can also, put TBD. Maybe you're contracting with somebody, but you think you want to have an employee next year, whatever it is, you can put TBD. We can always go back in and fill that in for you later. I'm going to help you navigate through the rest of the plan here. We're not going to go through every single thing, but just sort of basic navigation, the way this works. I want to just mention here again that save next with the little, it's like a yellow arrow kind of outlined in red there. That is really, I think, the best way to navigate through all of this. After you enter information, save, move to the next. That way, it will you're not gonna miss anything that way. If you are filling out a lot of information, like typing, and you're not ready to move to the next, if you just hit the save button, it's gonna restart the time. You're gonna notice on every page you have a 15-minute timer to complete that information. But if you hit just the save button, it'll restart it for you. So you can move forward and backwards. I'm looking over to the right of my screen, using those arrows to move forward through the standards tab, or, just as you want to page by page go through. You can also show the tree for all the questions that are associated. For example, I just did the little dialog box there to show you, I'm not sure if that's the right term, but whatever this little box is called, for under standard two, you can see there are 7 pages, and if you want to jump around, you can do that. This might be helpful later on, like if for whatever reason, if your compliance plan gets sent back after the regional manager's review and they want some more information. For example, I'm gonna pick on Lauren here. Lauren might say you really need to add more information on page 5 of standard 2. This way you can just jump exactly to that page, and then just add whatever information is suggested by the regional manager. So that is one way of using that tree. Otherwise, I would recommend, like I said, just going save next and moving question by question, page by page. Okay. And just a reminder here that you can close the application anytime. After you save your work, please make sure that you're always saving your work, but you can close it and come back to it. We get that, this might take some time for you to complete, and probably have other stuff to do. So at any time you can come back. And like I said, it changes from the application pending to application entry work in progress. That's a little screenshot that I grabbed there at the bottom so that you can see. This will appear in your pending tasks. You can open it up. There'll be a little arrow and it'll bounce you to exactly where you left off if that's what you want. Okay, so I'm going to have you continue working through all of the tabs, and this will take you through from standard one all the way through the indigency screening standard. Again, I just want to mention that copy feature. I don't think there's really hardly anything that's changed from last year, other than we updated some questions around standard 6 and 7. So you can use that copy feature. And again, you can just go, section by section by section if you're more comfortable with that, and it'll populate, and then you can just go through and edit it. We did notice. Um, if you do spell check, um, and you haven't hit save, it might erase the information. So it is my recommendation anytime you make any text changes to hit the save button, even if it's not saved next, if you're working through there. Because the spell check was a little bit inconsistent, it might delete that information for you. So we don't want that to happen. Okay, so then also, copying over from year to year, if you want to just take a look at the entire application, you do have the option from several different places within the grant program there to print. And that way, if you want to like share it with any, people that you're collaborating with on the compliance plan or cost analysis, you can print either if you copy over everything from last year, or even as you're working through, even if you're just typing everything fresh, you can print everything, the entire application, either with or without attachments. Just hover over those little things that look like printer icons, and it'll differentiate for you which option you have, either with or without attachments. It'll turn it into a PDF, and then you can just share it with anybody that you want to. I'm going to take you through the standards questions here just real quick. Anybody have any questions on filling out just sort of the basics we're going through? Okay. So moving through the standards itself, standard one, training and evaluation. Last year, for the first time, we asked a question about whether you're going to have attorneys report their continuing education attendance directly through CE Broker. I think last year, 105 of the 120 systems said yes. That's really great for us. We like that. It's a really efficient way for us to see in real time. Attorneys do, of course, still send over by email, or Deborah works with funding units to gather information about tracking attendance. We do use CE Broker for all purposes for tracking attendance here, whether attorneys are doing it directly or Deborah is assisting with inputting that information for them. CE Broker has been a really great solution for us. Um, Attorneys practicing criminal defense for less than 2 years need to have skills training. You can confer with regional managers about opportunities there. There are a number of skills training programs that will be available in FY26. We regularly work with the criminal defense attorneys of Michigan to let them know, how many systems intend to use CDAM for training in the coming fiscal year so that they can plan accordingly as well, not just for their regular conferences, their annual conferences, which are offered statewide, but also for things like Skills Training 101, a variety of the evidence boot camp iterations. They have, I think, 7 or 8 different programs now of evidence boot camp, as well as trial college. Also check with your regional managers about costs. Generally speaking, they use a per hour rate of $50 per hour for registration for all programs. That's what we use for planning purposes. Trial college is a little bit more this year. So if you want to send somebody to trial college, um, check with the regional manager. So we make sure that we have the right dollar figure in there for you. Standard two, this is really important for us to make sure that you are describing in adequate detail. Um, so that when the MIDC, the field team, the regional manager team is doing a site evaluation, we know what space that you're talking about. We've had turnover on our staff. We know you've had turnover as well. This really does help us to make sure that we are identifying the correct space and then also working to ensure compliance. And when we go to assess compliance, just for a meeting of the minds so that everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. Standard three, um, please feel free to use the rates on the MIDC's website as guidance for expert witnesses. Please also make sure that, if you know that you have a really big case coming up, or large, complicated, multi-defendant cases, like a cold case or, anything that might be coming up in the next year. Parks, Pool, Stovall, of course, we know there was a tremendous result from the Michigan Supreme Court just, was it yesterday or the day before? Yeah, I'm losing track of time this week, but where they expanded um, resentencings for 19 and 20-year-olds. So please make sure that you're working with your regional manager to project needs there that might be needed for expert and investigative resources. Counsel at first appearance, again, we just want to make sure that we have a good sense of how this works. Again, when it comes time for assessing compliance, both with standard four, but then also, how you pay people so that as we're assessing standard eight as well, we have a good sense of what that looks like. If it's anything other than pure hourly, like shift coverage or an on-call rate, please make sure that you're describing that in standard four, as well as later on standard eight and the cost analysis. Um, I mentioned earlier, Standard 5 requires that public defense function completely independent from the judiciary. Most people have systems in place, like, for example, for making assignments, for reviewing bills, for reviewing requests for experts, investigators, whatever it is. If you need a review partner, because for whatever reason, any sort of decision about the local appointing authority is being challenged, check with the regional manager. We can put you in touch with somebody. It is really nice if you have that person spelled out in your compliance plan. So if to the extent that we can help facilitate that for you, just ask a regional manager and we will do our best to help accommodate you. I put that these are like new-ish questions for standard six and seven. Basically, what we're looking for, we know that everybody is still working towards implementing standard six and seven right now. Implementation is expected somewhere between May through August of this year, I would say, something like that. So we're not quite there yet. What we're really looking for is, do you want to make any changes from last year? We know that you had a plan last year that was approved, and we know that it's early on in implementation. So if you already know something is not quite working and you want to change that up, can you just flag that for us? And so that way we can identify as we're going through our review and alerting the commission, when it comes time, either everything is going smoothly, implementation is still ongoing, or we already know we want to make a change. We just want to be able to highlight that for the commission when it comes time for their decision making. Some of these questions look the same. And again, we're just looking for, estimates here on how many of your attorneys do other type of work. Like I said, estimate is fine. We also are still trying to gather information about, how you are keeping track of when your attorneys are working in other systems. We still can't provide real-time information. This gets later on down the road to the reporting pieces here, trying to assess compliance. We can, provide you with information after reporting is complete to let you know from the most recent reporting period where the other attorneys stand. We are piloting a couple of projects. Again, we're looking to learn as well. We know that this is early in implementation. We're looking to learn from you. So just to the best of your ability, how you're trying to keep track of that. We know there are hundreds of attorneys statewide who work in more than one system. We're just trying to learn how to get a handle on that so that we can best support you and make sure that you're compliant with the standards, particularly around the caseloads. Indigency screening. The commission is still interested in information around contribution and reimbursement. Contribution is really rare. Of the 120 systems, I think less than 10 seek contribution from a partially indigent defendant during the course of the case. Reimbursement, though, at the end of the case is very common. I think more than 100 systems still seek reimbursement, and the commission wants that information. So please make sure that you don't skip that question. Standard 8 on compensation. These are the rates that are going to be in effect starting October 1st of 2000. Wait, I'm going to get this wrong. For FY26, October 1st of 2025. These are the rates that are going to be in effect. So this is 3% higher than what it was last year, what's in place right now. And that tracks the state of Michigan employees, the civil service guidance for cost of living increases for state employees. So these rates are required for contractors who are paid hourly. What we offer for guidance is for salaried employees, like attorneys who work in public defender office, or if you have an employee who's a managed assigned counsel administrator. Um, for anyone who, like a MAC or anyone with supervisory responsibilities, the guidance is around the 16 level for the state attorney general's pay. And then for line attorneys, it's going to be at that 15. The minimum is guidance, again, is around that 15 level. Um, This again is looking for information if you're not paying attorneys, if anything other than pure hourly rates, we want to know how people are being paid. So again, that's going to be the shift or the on-call fees. Please make sure that you're providing in sufficient detail there. Click save, make sure that you're saving your work as you're going through. Moving on to what I think is just sort of the roundup here is the miscellaneous tab. There's going to be a number of things here that we're just trying to collect information on. First, there is a statutory provision in the MIDC Act that allows funding units to seek reimbursement for the cost of planning. Mainly, this is going to come up now at this point if you contract out with somebody. Or somebody who's not part of the PD office or the public, or providing services and paid otherwise by the grant. Somebody else is doing some work and they need to get reimbursed. That is allowable. Please work with the regional manager and our grants director as to the documentation that's required to substantiate getting reimbursed for that request. We have a whole section here on costs associated with data collection. This is also a statutory opportunity here for systems to be reimbursed for data collection costs. What we're looking for is really anything related to data collection. We're trying to get a handle on that. Whether it is like a case management system or even a person that you hire, whether it's, part-time, full-time, whatever, if their primary responsibility is for entering information related to data collection, please put a dollar figure there. And again, we just want to be able to match that up later on with the cost analysis and isolate those costs for information that the commission collects throughout the year and that we track again under the MIDC Act. So this is also under the miscellaneous tab. This is the attorneys providing the work. We are super picky about how this has to look. So please pay attention here if you're not going to copy and paste over from last year. What we're looking for is a naming convention like this, last name, comma, first name. And then we need the attorney's P numbers without the P. So just the 5-digit number that's assigned by the State Bar of Michigan. If you put a placeholder there, for example, maybe you have somebody that you want to hire in your office or on your roster that hasn't passed the bar yet. They took the bar, but they're waiting for the bar, or they're coming from another jurisdiction. They're waiting to, get waived in or whatever I haven't kept up on the reciprocity opportunities. But whatever it is, if they're a placeholder, please don't add them at this point because later on, I talked a little bit earlier about CE broker and how many, every attorney who's on this list is going to be in CE broker. And so if they don't have a P number or if you put a bunch of zeros, that really, just for lack of a better description, that really messes up our system. So if they have a bunch of zeros, that might end up being their P number forever. And actually, if a couple people end up having all zeros, it's just chaos for us. So we're going to delete that out. So please don't put any placeholder people there. You can always go back at, the first quarter of reporting or anytime, during the course of the year. Through your reporting process, you can add somebody and then they will be added to CE broker and then just tell them to hang on to any continuing education that they complete and their attendance can be tracked after they're added, after they have a P number assigned. Okay, this came up the other day where somebody said, can you just tell us what all of the categories are and what all the things are within each category? So I thought that was a good idea. And actually, people on the team have asked for this too. So the next few slides, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but you can always go back to these slides if you want. These are the categories. I'm done with the compliance plan piece. Any questions about compliance plan before I move into costs? So the cost analysis does have to be completed for every system. And we have several categories that you have to work through. Some of them you might not have any cost for. You might not have any personnel or fringe benefits. Everybody has contracts for attorneys, and everybody should have experts and investigators. Not hardly any construction comes up anymore. Probably have contracts for other. Almost nobody has equipment. Everybody has travel and training, everybody has supplies and services, and only a handful of places have indirect costs. So these are the sort of high level categories that you need to complete page by page through in EGrAMS. And then within those categories, there are a number of descriptions, and you have to use the lookup buttons for these. So this was a suggestion or request that I actually just put what all the titles are. So under personnel, these are the types of titles that you can have. And of course, you can always choose other. And if you choose other, then you're going to get a little drop-down box underneath where you have to put the more specific description, whatever the description might be. I don't know. I don't really know what that could be, but there are definitely positions that don't fit within these most common 12 or 15, however many we have here, most common descriptions for employees. Under fringe benefits, these are the opportunities. Again, there will be an other option as well. But these are the fringe benefit categories that we've come up with that seem to be the most common. Contracts for attorneys tend to fall in these ranges. Again, there's an other as well in case we missed something there. We'll talk about these in a few minutes. But contracts other, this is where some of the more common things go that we're trying to collect information about, maybe the case management software or data collection, other interns. We used to have Westlaw here. Now we just have legal research software. Some people contract with social workers. Anything else that you have as well? Training and travel. This isn't as intuitive to people, and maybe there's not a great reason, but we have it grouped here together with a few other things, including bar membership for your full-time salaried attorneys. Humanitarian support is here in training and travel, mainly because I think our thought process was a lot of times this falls in things like a bus voucher or like a Uber gift card, something like that. So we put it with training and travel here. A distinction, I always get questions, what's the difference between registration fees and training? For our reporting purposes, we like to keep stuff for attorneys for CLE under registration, and then training is sort of everything else. Like some people might need to go to, for social workers, they might go to training, or your investigators might go to a conference, something like that, whatever that looks like. But that's sort of anything else. But for attorneys and CLE, it goes under registration fees. Again, that's our preference. Supplies and services, these are I think most of these are the same categories as last year, with the exception of indirect costs for non-employees. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. Supplies and services, this isn't always intuitive to people either. This is where we put that cost of planning. If you're seeking reimbursement for that, it goes here. That's that 13.2 number there. And then reimbursement for overspending in prior year. Sometimes people want to put this under contracts for attorneys because they, for example, paid their attorneys extra last year, whatever that looks like. We do isolate that out though, and we put it here under supplies and services. Again, this kind of gets into the weeds on our reporting and how we generate reports. So if we see it in a different category, we're going to move it here. So working through the cost analysis, the very first question that you get is, what type of model do you have? Do you have a vendor nonprofit model? Um, Most systems, I think only 4 or 5 systems this year will be using a nonprofit model. So most of you will say no, and then you don't have to fill out that vendor cost analysis tab. If you do have a vendor model, if you do contract with a nonprofit public defender, that's totally fine. Just, click yes. I'm not going to go through all those since it doesn't apply to very many people. You do have the same categories, whether it's personnel, fringe benefits, whatever contracts that you have, equipment, supply services, travel, all of that kind of stuff. You have those as well under the vendor. You just have to duplicate, you know, it's not really duplicating. You will have to fill it out, not just for the regular cost analysis piece, but fill it out again, whatever the relevant expenses are for the nonprofit office under the vendor model. Most people say no, though. So, like I said, I'm just going to take you through the traditional cost analysis components here. For each page, I'm starting with personnel. Again, you have to use the lookup menu and choose one of these descriptions. And again, you always have the other option if it doesn't match here. This is the only way it will populate. A lot of people start to type under the description and then it doesn't save. It just goes away. And people say, I don't know what happened. I typed all this and it's gone. And that's because you didn't use the lookup menu to populate the description there. So please do that. Um, Data collection here. Like I said, this is for personnel. I put that here in these notes. And again, that should match up back to the earlier question in the miscellaneous tab, whatever dollar figure you're asking for. For this again gets into some of the picky stuff that we do with report generation. We might change this around too. So like for the quantity and the rates and the units, we like this to be pretty uniform for the reports that we run. I'm on personnel here. Like if, for example, you just have a chief public defender, you probably only have one of them. So the quantity would be one. If it's, a line attorney, assistant defender, you might have 8 or 12 of them, then you would put 8 if they're all paid the same rate and the same units. For units, those are hours. I use 2080 because that's what the state of Michigan uses. I know some systems use 2000 even, some use 1955, whatever it is, whatever your units are for your hourly rate. And then that should automatically calculate under the total there. So for every page that you complete in the higher level cost categories, again, personnel, fringes, contracts for attorneys, you do have to have a narrative. Um, that narrative needs to be filled out. If it's not, you'll get an error at the end. So this is my best tip here. You might say in that narrative section, see notes. And like for each page, you might go through, I mean, for each line, you might go through and just add a note and say exactly what that person's role is. And especially if they're new, we're going to want some information there. So it is fine enough for you to just say, see notes below. That's fine. But then just make sure that you're filling out the notes as well. I'm on fringe benefits here. This is our preferred way for entering fringe benefits. I know for some systems, you just have like consolidated benefits, and that is an option if you want to, but we do prefer that it is a percent of the overall total for your personnel tab. So, and the calculation will then, sort of automatically um, uh, you know, be expressed here under the total or the state grant. Hopefully that matches up. A lot of people do attach information about how the calculation happens and then do the overall. That's okay as well. But we do really prefer if you can, go line by line to say exactly the types of benefits that are offered. That is helpful for us too. For contracts for attorneys, this is one where I think people end up just sort of having, for projection purposes, it's really hard to know how many misdemeanors you're going to have, how many, felonies, how many life offenses. So there tends to be, I think we see this most in contracts for attorneys, just sort of a larger line item here. We are going to want you to show your math though in the notes. And, make sure that you're using the most recent hourly rates. I had it on an earlier slide. It's available on our website as well on the grants manual, in the grant manual on the grants page. Um, Anytime you're filling out the notes, make sure that you click OK so that it actually saves the information before you hit close. If you hit close or just close it out without hitting OK, it won't save. And then we'll go looking for it and it won't be there. So just pay attention to that. You might have to kind of expand your boxes too, because it's not always apparent on my screen to see that OK and close. Under contracts for attorneys, appeals was something new last year that we added as a distinct line item. And we do want that broken out because this is, again, something that we're trying to track pretty closely at our commission's request. So the commission does allow funding for, certain types of appeals. Obviously, nothing that is covered under the Appellate Defender Act that's, expressly taken out of our statutory language. But there are a number of types of appeals where the commission does authorize that funding. So if you could just make sure that you're breaking that out and also making sure that you are using a formula so that we know what the rate is that's being paid. So, for example, it's not going to be okay to just put $15,000 in a retainer for appeals. Um, we need to see the hourly rate and how that's going to be billed. I just used a placeholder number here for like the highest rate, the highest minimum rate. You might use something different for, district to circuit, whatever that is. But please make sure that you're including the formula so that we can see your work. Um, you might want some flexibility with, the types of, person that you want to use. If you happen to know an attorney who's willing to do it and who's qualified, based on CLE and on your roster, whatever, you might want to go through the Michigan Appellate Design Council system over at Max. You might want to use Brad Hall's clinic at MSU. He's got a new clinic that's been doing great work in interlocutory appeals. Some of you might reach out to Barb Klimaszewski, Mike Naughton for their special assignment team. They have been helping place people too, whatever that is. We just want to make sure that we, have an understanding of how, of the hourly rate that's going to be paid, whatever the situation is. You don't have to explain any of that stuff. We just want to make sure that we have an understanding of the rates that are being paid. Experts and investigators, we mentioned this at the beginning, investigator rates have gone up to 125. Again, just do your best to project your needs. We know that there's a lot of activity throughout the course of the year with line item transfers here. That's fine. Just do your best to project. Construction, I'm moving through these, pretty quickly because I want to make sure I save time for questions and make sure I get through all the pieces here. Stop me if you have any questions or concerns. Contracts for construction, this is pretty rare. And I want to make sure that we're using this only for significant construction projects like major renovation, remodel, that kind of stuff. Usually when we're talking about construction, we're talking about projects that are over $50,000. Some of them have been upwards of $1 million. If this is just something like, adding a window, putting up a wall, like a partition, to kind of break up a larger space into like two smaller spaces or whatever. And it's under that $50,000 threshold. Make sure, just throw that under supplies and services. We get a lot of things like paint here, window treatments, things like that. We want all of that in supplies. Construction should really just be for a major project. Contracts other, this is, again, where we're trying to isolate a particular, types of expenses, again, mostly on our end. So we've categorized these into a few different things. Interns and intern stipends were new last year. And we did have several people do it. I'm going to show you here in one of these slides. I think I did this for Nicole Dirks the other day, just trying to get a sense of like, if this is something new and you want to you want to just find out like what do people ask for a stipend, or how much are they paying interns? What does this look like in a compliance plan? This is an example of a report that we can run on our end. And the reason why, I'm not going to say we, I end up being super picky about this is because I like to be able to run reports in seconds. And so if somebody's looking for something, I want to be able to go to the category that I think it should be in, and I can run it and just organize it alphabetically. I can isolate the expenses. And then again, like making sure that the quantity and the rate and the budget amount, all of those are in the units. Those are all in the right, the spaces that kind of make it make sense if I wanted to total this out. This is what these reports look like on our end. We can do these for you. If you're interested in something like this, we can. I mean, really, the nice thing about EGrAMS is we can run reports on any category, any line level description in any of the plans. I try to make a lot of aggregate information available annually through our annual reports and on our website. And specifically, in the higher level categories, we did break that down because we were required to through some boilerplate language in our attached to our budget last year. But you can go on our website and you can see some of these higher level categories for every single funding unit across Michigan. And if there's something specific that we can help generate and it doesn't take a bunch of time, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know. Okay, moving on here. Equipment. This is going to be one item over $5,000. This is not, we get a lot of stuff here in terms of like maybe phones or tablets or even laptops. A lot of those don't cost $5,000. So we're again are going to put that in supplies and services. We'll let you know if you end up putting something here in equipment and we move it to supplies and services, we'll shoot you a message and let you know. This is important for later on. Like I'm looking forward down the road after your compliance plan is approved, you're working throughout the year and maybe within your system, they end up purchasing a phone or a tablet or whatever it is. And your finance department might categorize it as equipment. If you go back here and you see, oh, I don't even have anything for equipment, and you go to try to do a line item transfer, we're not going to let you move money back to equipment. Again, equipment has to be one single item over $5,000. So please make sure, you pay attention if we tell you that we move something. We'll remind you later on too, but if you try to move something back later on, something like this, we're probably not going to let you. Again, this is for our sort of report categorization and also specifically when it comes to equipment, state of Michigan definition of what that means. Training and travel. I think new this year, we have this travel time for client visits. This is going to be for clients who aren't in local custody, trying to get a handle on that. In the past, we've been learning a lot over the last couple of years about how we can track this information. Some systems have reported that in like under contracts for attorneys, even if you might pay them a different rate for just their travel time, if attorneys aren't local, like if you're bringing in attorneys from another system because you have to have somebody cover something, that's fine. That's allowable. But the way that we're tracking this is under travel for that time, not under contracts for attorneys. And the reason why this became important in the last year or so is because we're trying to assess compliance with Standard 8. And if you're paying attorneys at a different rate for their travel time versus their, service time, it ends up being difficult for us to ascertain compliance if it's all within contracts for attorneys. So travel time, we're asking you to put over here separately. Okay. Humanitarian support was new last year. This was pursuant to the amendment of the Michigan Rule of Professional Conduct. Here again, just like another snapshot of some of these um, request from last year, pretty average to have somewhere between 500 to 1,000 or $2,000 requested. A lot of times it was just in the form of, bus passes, just, or Uber, gift cards for somebody to get to court. That's what that looked like. So, again, we're happy to help you navigate this, but for anybody wondering, like, where do I even start? How much should I even ask for? This is about what it looked like last year. Supplies and services, again, we might make some changes. This is the main area where we kind of tend to send a lot of stuff to. Supplies and services, we've got a lot of things in this category. I think 17 different types of descriptions. And again, you always have other available to you. And again, if we move anything, we'll let you know. Cost allocation, a big question that we get is what's the difference between cost allocation and indirect costs? The main thing is for cost allocation, if you have a county department, you're probably going to have an actual assessment for how much your department costs your county to run that department. So we're asking you to attach that and use under supplies and services cost allocation, the actual assessment, and use the little paper clip to attach your document there just to show us how much it is to substantiate the request. New this year, indirect costs for non-employees. I don't have much guidance for what this is going to look like. I think it could fall into a couple of categories. I think for funding units that contract with a vendor, like a nonprofit public defender office, they might want to build in some HR support in their compliance plan, or to contract that out or something if the nonprofit office doesn't have HR, or maybe some other services, financial services, whatever it is, you might want to, put that there. It might also just be the cost of maintaining space. All funding units are required to have confidential meeting space in the courthouse, private meeting space for people to meet with their clients before court. Maintaining that space comes with costs, right? There's lights, there's janitorial services, there's water, there's, whatever that is. So there might be some costs associated with it that the system's looking to recoup. So the commission has made this available this year. And we'll just continue to learn. I think if you are interested in having that, if you don't have any employees, but you are interested in recouping some indirect costs, please work with your regional manager and our grants director, Rebecca Mack, so that we can, make sure that we have all the information for the commission to make a decision about the request. Okay, and then for indirect costs, if you do have employees, but you don't have an assessment yet from like, whether it's Maximus or there's some other companies that do these reports on how much departments cost. You can just claim indirect costs of up to 10%. This is going to be 10%, it's going to be limited to 10% of the total of your personnel and fringe benefits category combined. So it's just a mathematical formula that you would plug in there. Okay, and then paging through here, you're going to get to this summary page. Please make sure that for every category, so if you look at the description, contracts, other equipment, training, travel, or whatever, if you are requesting funding, please make sure again that that higher level category narrative does have some information in it. And again, it can be see notes below, whatever that is, that's fine. But if it's grayed out like equipment, that should mean that you didn't request anything. If you're requesting funding and it's grayed out, go back and fill it out, please, because you'll get an error. It won't let you validate and submit. So this is for the vendor nonprofit model. Again, you just have to go through all of the categories that are associated with running the nonprofit office and just make sure at the end of the vendor cost analysis, the total cost for the vendor office matches the line item for contracts for attorneys for the vendor nonprofit model. And again, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help, with any of the calculations and validations here. Once you're done completing the cost analysis, you do have to complete the source of funds. This is a manual entry here. This isn't going to calculate automatically. So after you complete the entire cost analysis, the total expenditures will be displayed. I'm looking at the top image here. The total expenditures in the middle, the 3,187,368. This is just for example from one of the systems. What you need to do to enter the information for the state grant contribution is to take that total expenses, the 3,187,000, and subtract the local share, which is the 545,000 in this instance, to arrive at the 2,642,000. You need to enter that manually there, that 2,642 under the state grant, that middle category there. Everything else over to the left, just leave blank. The only thing that you have to enter is the 2,642,000. Once you complete that and it ties out at the bottom, so for the total source of funds, save this information. And then you're going to go back, remember all the way back to the beginning, the thing I said, save and hold till the end and enter that information there. So like write it down on a piece of paper, page all the way back. The state grant contribution is the amount of funds requested, and the project cost is the total expenditures. So that's the main thing that you have to fill out manually there. Sorry, that was gross. Okay, so the final step here, after you go through is to click validate. And make sure that you're, saving your work as you go. Assuming everything validates, all sections validate successfully, which means you've completed everything, the calculations match up, the source of funds page is perfect. Your narrative, anytime that you have a cost category, you filled out the narrative, all the things are done, you will get a message saying that all sections are validated successfully. You're going to close it out up there to the right. And if you're ready, you can go through and print and submit the application. You can print at any time, even after you submit it here. So go back to that print submit. You're going to get this little hyperlink here. Select that information, click on the hyperlink. It will, once you go to hit submit, it will give you that prompt at the top. Ignore the test part. This is again from our test environment, but it will tell you that it's going to promote the grant application to the regional manager for review. Click OK, and you're good. And like I said, you can print from here at any time. You're going to get the option either print everything or print it without the attachments. Just hover over and it'll tell you which option that if whatever you're interested in, it'll turn it into a PDF for you. Um, if you're working on these and submitting in the next couple of days, regional managers are going to review these as soon as they can. They may return it to you for some suggestions or modifications or corrections. You'll get an alert in EGrAMS, and nobody's going to return anything to you after April 21st. So this is only going to be really relevant for the next week or so. If you do get this, once you get back to you log in and you're on your home screen under the pending tasks. It'll take you to where you need to go. If you click on the pending task, you can just click on the little arrow there and you'll jump right to it. My best tip that I have, if it does get returned to you, is to, along the ribbon, go all the way over to the right, use the arrow, and get to the thing called index. And once you're on the index, you're going to be able to see, scroll down through, you're going to be able to see any comments that the regional managers made. And so, do you remember, like early on when I was talking about using the tree, to help you navigate around? This again is going to give you that opportunity. So, for example, if it says on standard 4 at page 3, include something specific, whatever it is, you can just bounce right over to there instead of going page by page by page by page. So that's where that tree navigation might be helpful. And then, when you're done, you would go back and use the same steps after you complete everything. And again, you're going to need, if you changed any of the money, you're going to, in the cost allocation, you definitely want to make sure that you validate and correct any errors that might happen. And you go back through and you, under the grant application, print submit. Again, you're going to hit submit. You have to submit it to send it back to the regional managers. And again, you can print at any time. Couple of other things I've mentioned already about, some of the reports that we generate and information links to compliance plans on our website. This is our website, michiganidc.gov on our grants page. We do have information going back historically to the first year that we started awarding these grants back in 2019. More recently, for 2024, we started including links to all of the approved compliance plans as they existed at the end of the year. This was part of our annual report. And we also did, as a courtesy, if anybody's interested, you can see the current plans in FY25. There's a link there, it's just going to take you to a Google Drive of all the approved compliance plans. There are a couple that aren't in there, I think because they had a line item transfer pending or something, so we couldn't access them. But I think all but a couple of them are in there. And if you're looking for something that you can't find, then just let me know. They're organized by region. So those are all available if you want to take a look at any time. And I just, want to emphasize that we're here to help. We want to make sure that, we get that this isn't something that you do every day and that you're all really, really busy. We want to make sure that this is as easy for you as possible.